Charlotte Reed clutched her daughter Mia's small hand as they navigated through the elegant restaurant, feeling painfully out of place among the crisp white tablecloths and crystal chandeliers. This dinner was far beyond her budget, a once-in-a-lifetime splurge to celebrate Mia's 7th birthday. Charlotte had saved for months from her 2 jobs to afford this special treat, knowing her daughter had never experienced anything so fancy. "Remember our inside voices," Charlotte whispered, guiding Mia to the corner table, the least expensive option she could reserve. The maitre d' cast a barely concealed judgmental glance at Charlotte's simple dress, purchased second-hand for occasions precisely like this one. "Yes, Mommy," Mia replied, her big brown eyes wide with wonder as she took in the sparkling surroundings of Billionaire, the most exclusive restaurant in Boston. Charlotte's heart swelled watching her daughter's excitement. Since her husband Daniel's death 3 years ago in a construction accident, moments of pure joy had become rare treasures. She worked morning shifts at a local cafe and evenings as a virtual assistant, exhausting herself to provide some semblance of stability for Mia. Tonight was about creating a beautiful memory, even if it meant eating ramen for the next 2 weeks to compensate for this extravagance. Their waiter approached, handing them leather-bound menus with a practiced flourish. "Good evening, ladies. May I start you with something to drink?" Charlotte scanned the prices and felt her throat tighten. Even the sparkling water cost more than she expected. "Just tap water for both of us, please." As the waiter departed with barely concealed disappointment, Charlotte noticed Mia's attention drawn across the room. Following her daughter's gaze, Charlotte froze. Seated at the prime table was Gabriel Morgan, the real estate magnate whose face regularly graced business magazines and local news. His company, Morgan Developments, was reshaping Boston's skyline with luxury buildings and controversial gentrification projects, including the redevelopment that had nearly doubled her rent last year, forcing them to move to a smaller apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. "Mommy, why does that man have so much food?" Mia asked, her voice carrying slightly in the hushed atmosphere. "Is he having a birthday too?" "Shh, honey," Charlotte whispered, mortified. "It's not polite to stare at other people while they're eating." But Mia's innocent curiosity had already attracted attention. Gabriel Morgan glanced up from his business dinner, his sharp grey eyes meeting Charlotte's for a brief moment that sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. He was undeniably handsome in his perfectly tailored suit, with dark hair touched by distinguished silver at the temples. His companions, 2 men in equally expensive attire, continued talking, but Morgan's attention had shifted. Charlotte quickly looked away, focusing intently on her menu while her cheeks burned. The prices made her stomach clench with anxiety. This had been a mistake. She should have taken Mia to their usual diner, where the owner sometimes slipped them extra dessert, knowing their situation. "We should decide what we want, sweetie," Charlotte murmured, calculating rapidly. They could share an appetizer and perhaps one entree. She would claim she wasn't very hungry. The waiter returned for their order, his expression making it clear he understood they wouldn't be big spenders. "We'll have the house salad to share, and then the chicken pasta also to share," Charlotte said, selecting the least expensive options. "Very good," he replied with professional detachment, collecting the menus. As they waited for their food, Charlotte noticed Mia was still glancing periodically toward Gabriel Morgan's table, where an impressive array of dishes created a feast that contrasted sharply with their own modest order. When their salad arrived, considerably smaller than Charlotte had hoped, she divided it carefully, giving Mia the larger portion. "Is this all we get?" Mia whispered, disappointment flickering across her face before she quickly added, "It looks yummy, though." Charlotte's heart sank. This special night wasn't turning out as she'd planned. "We have pasta coming too, honey, and maybe, if we have room in our budget, we can look at the dessert menu after." The lie tasted bitter. There was absolutely no room in the budget for dessert, but she couldn't bear to see her daughter's disappointment on her birthday. When their shared pasta dish arrived, Charlotte pretended to be occupied with her napkin so that Mia wouldn't notice her taking only a tiny portion. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she said with forced brightness. "Is the pasta good?" Mia nodded enthusiastically, though Charlotte could tell she was still hungry. Throughout their meal, Charlotte noticed the waiter making repeated trips to Gabriel Morgan's table, delivering more dishes and expensive bottles of wine. The contrast between their experiences in the same restaurant couldn't have been more stark. When they finished their meager meal, Charlotte asked for the check immediately, skipping any mention of dessert despite the promise she'd made earlier. She just wanted to leave before Mia could ask again. While waiting for the bill, she excused herself to use the restroom, leaving Mia with strict instructions to sit quietly. "I'll be right back, sweetie. Don't move from this chair, okay?" In the elegant restroom, Charlotte splashed cold water on her face and took several deep breaths. The evening had cost her nearly a week's groceries, and Mia was still hungry. Fighting back tears of frustration, she composed herself, applied a fresh coat of lipstick, and returned to the dining room with renewed determination to end the night on a positive note. But when she approached their table, her heart stopped. Mia's chair was empty. Panic surged through Charlotte as her eyes frantically scanned the restaurant. Then she saw her. Mia had wandered over to Gabriel Morgan's table and was standing there, apparently engaged in conversation with the billionaire himself. Morgan was leaning down, smiling at something Mia was saying, while his business associates looked on with amused expressions. Mortified, Charlotte rushed over. "Mia, I'm so sorry," she apologized, addressing both her daughter and the powerful man whose dinner they were interrupting. "Mia, I told you to stay in your seat." "But Mommy, Mr. Gabriel asked me to come over," Mia protested. "He saw me looking and waved at me." Gabriel Morgan stood, towering over Charlotte. Up close, his presence was even more imposing, emanating power and confidence. "Please, it's entirely my fault," he said, his voice deep and surprisingly warm. "I noticed your daughter admiring our dessert selection, and I couldn't resist inviting her over. I hope you don't mind." Before Charlotte could respond, the waiter appeared at her side. "Ma'am, your bill," he said, handing her the check folder. Charlotte's face flushed as she glanced at the total, aware of Gabriel Morgan watching. She fumbled with her worn wallet, extracting her only credit card, the emergency one that was already dangerously close to its limit. "We should go," she said quietly to Mia, gently taking her hand. "Thank you for understanding," she added to Morgan, unable to meet his eyes. "Actually," Morgan said, "we were just about to order the chef's special dessert tasting. It's far too much for us to finish. Perhaps you and your daughter would consider joining us. It is a special occasion, isn't it?" Charlotte froze, caught between pride and the desire to give Mia a proper birthday celebration. Before she could decide, Mia's excited voice piped up. "It's my birthday. I'm 7 today." Morgan's expression softened as he looked at Mia. 7 is a very important age. "I think that definitely deserves the best dessert in Boston, don't you?" Charlotte stood at a crossroads, torn between walking away from this handsome, powerful man who represented everything beyond her reach, and accepting his unexpected kindness for her daughter's sake. "We couldn't possibly impose," Charlotte said, though her resolve weakened seeing the hope in Mia's eyes. Her daughter rarely asked for anything, understanding their financial limitations with a maturity that sometimes broke Charlotte's heart. Gabriel Morgan's smile remained unwavering. "It's no imposition at all. In fact, you'd be doing us a favor. The chef gets offended if we don't fully appreciate his dessert creations." He gestured to his business associates. "My colleagues were just leaving, as we've concluded our business discussion." As if on cue, the two men stood, nodding politely to Charlotte. "Always a pleasure, Gabriel," said the older of the two, a distinguished man with salt and pepper hair. "We'll have the contracts revised by Monday." He glanced at Charlotte and Mia with curiosity before departing. Charlotte hesitated, still clutching the bill that she couldn't comfortably afford. Before she could protest further, Gabriel discreetly took the check folder from her hand and passed it to the waiter along with his own. "Please add the lady's bill to mine, James," he said smoothly. "Mr. Morgan, I can't let you do that," Charlotte protested, her pride flaring despite her financial reality. "Consider it my birthday gift to your daughter," he replied, his grey eyes meeting hers with unexpected warmth. "Besides, I insist on compensating you for allowing me to enjoy some genuine conversation. Business dinners can be terribly dull." Charlotte recognized that refusing would only create an awkward scene that would embarrass Mia. Swallowing her pride, she nodded. "That's very generous of you, thank you." "Mommy, can we stay for dessert, please?" Mia pleaded, bouncing slightly on her toes. With a small smile of surrender, Charlotte allowed Gabriel to pull out a chair for her at his table. As they settled in, she noticed the restaurant staff scrambling to accommodate this unexpected arrangement, bringing fresh silverware and napkins with efficient haste. "I'm Gabriel Morgan," he said, formally introducing himself once they were seated. "Charlotte Reed," she replied, "and this is my daughter, Mia. It's a pleasure to meet you both. Now, Mia, tell me, what's your favorite dessert?" As Mia launched into an enthusiastic description of her love for anything chocolate, Charlotte observed Gabriel Morgan more closely. His reputation as a ruthless businessman seemed at odds with the man before her, who listened to her daughter with genuine interest. The lines around his eyes suggested he was in his early 40s, perhaps a decade older than herself. Despite his obvious wealth and power, there was something almost approachable about him in this moment. The dessert tasting arrived, an extravagant display of 6 different confections, each more elaborate than the last. Mia's eyes widened with delight as the pastry chef personally described each creation. "And this," the chef said, presenting a chocolate sphere, "is our pièce de résistance. Watch carefully." He poured warm caramel sauce over the sphere, melting it to reveal a delicate raspberry mousse and chocolate cake center. Mia gasped with wonder, and even Charlotte couldn't suppress her amazement. "That's incredible," she murmured. "The transformation is always my favorite part," Gabriel remarked, watching Charlotte's reaction with interest. As they sampled the desserts, the conversation flowed more easily than Charlotte expected. Gabriel asked Mia about school and her interests, showing patience and attentiveness that surprised Charlotte. "I like drawing and reading," Mia explained, chocolate smudging the corner of her mouth. "And math too. My teacher says I'm really good at numbers." "That's a valuable skill," Gabriel replied. "Numbers have built my entire career." Charlotte reached over with her napkin to wipe Mia's face, a maternal gesture that felt suddenly self-conscious under Gabriel's gaze. "And what about you, Charlotte?" he asked, turning those perceptive eyes toward her. "What do you do when you're not celebrating birthdays at Lumiere?" She hesitated, reluctant to reveal the stark contrast between their lives. "I work at Riverbed Cafe in the mornings, and I do virtual assistant work in the evenings." "2 jobs," he noted, his expression revealing nothing. "That must be demanding." "We manage," Charlotte replied simply, unwilling to invite pity. A brief silence fell, filled only by Mia's contented hum as she savored a spoonful of crème brûlée. "And Mia's father?" Gabriel asked quietly. The question, though gently posed, struck like a physical blow. Charlotte set down her spoon. "Daniel passed away 3 years ago. Construction accident." Gabriel's expression softened with genuine regret. "I'm sorry. That must have been incredibly difficult for both of you." "It was sudden," Charlotte said, the familiar pain resurfacing despite the years that had passed. "One day we were a normal family with plans and dreams, and the next—" She trailed off, aware of Mia listening. "Well, we've adapted," Gabriel nodded, understanding her reluctance to say more in front of her daughter. "Adaptation is a powerful human quality," he said thoughtfully. "Some might say it's our greatest strength." The conversation shifted to lighter topics as they continued sampling the exquisite desserts. Charlotte discovered that beneath his polished exterior, Gabriel possessed a dry wit that made her laugh, despite her initial discomfort. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to forget the vast differences in their circumstances and simply enjoy the unexpected pleasure of intelligent adult conversation, something she hadn't realized how desperately she'd missed. "Mummy, I'm getting sleepy," Mia said eventually, stifling a yawn. It was well past her usual bedtime, the excitement of the evening finally giving way to fatigue. Charlotte nodded, the spell broken as reality reasserted itself. "We should be going. Thank you again for your kindness, Mr. Morgan." "Gabriel, please," he corrected. "And it was entirely my pleasure. This has been the most enjoyable dinner I've had in months." He signaled for the waiter, who appeared instantly at his side. After a brief hushed conversation, the waiter departed and returned moments later, with a small box tied with an elegant ribbon. "A little something for the birthday girl to take home," Gabriel explained, presenting the box to Mia. "The chef prepared some additional treats for tomorrow." "What do you say, Mia?" Charlotte prompted. "Thank you, Mr. Gabriel." Mia beamed, clutching the box as if it contained treasure. As they prepared to leave, Charlotte felt a curious mixture of emotions: gratitude, confusion, and an unsettling awareness of Gabriel Morgan that she couldn't quite define. This evening had veered so dramatically from her expectations that she felt slightly disoriented. Gabriel accompanied them to the restaurant entrance where the maitre d' had already summoned a taxi, another of Gabriel's quiet arrangements, Charlotte realized. "How are you getting home?" she asked suddenly, noticing there was no chauffeur or luxury car waiting for him. Gabriel smiled. "I live in the penthouse upstairs, one of the perks of developing the building." Of course he did. Charlotte felt foolish for asking, the gulf between their worlds reasserting itself forcefully. "Well, thank you again," she said formally, extending her hand in what she hoped was a dignified gesture of closure to this unusual encounter. Gabriel took her hand, but instead of shaking it, he held it for a moment longer than convention dictated. "The pleasure was mine, Charlotte." Something in the way he said her name sent an unexpected shiver through her, which she immediately suppressed. This wasn't a fairy tale, and men like Gabriel Morgan didn't genuinely interest themselves in struggling single mothers. As the taxi drove them home to their small apartment in a neighborhood that Gabriel's company was slowly transforming with upscale developments, Mia clutched her precious box of desserts and chattered excitedly about her birthday adventure. "Mr. Gabriel was so nice, Mommy, and he said my drawings sound amazing. I want to show him my dinosaur one." Charlotte smiled faintly, stroking Mia's hair. "That's not likely to happen, sweetie. Mr. Morgan is a very busy man who was just being kind tonight." "But he gave me his card and told me to have you call him," Mia protested, pulling a business card from her pocket that Charlotte hadn't seen Gabriel give her. Charlotte took the heavy cardstock, turning it over in her hands. On the back, written in a strong, decisive hand, was a personal phone number and a brief note. "Mia's artwork sounds extraordinary. Perhaps you could call me about a proper exhibition. G." Charlotte stared at the card, uncertain what to make of this development. Was this genuine interest in Mia's childish drawings a business proposition, or something else entirely? The taxi pulled up to their apartment building, a stark contrast to the luxury establishment they'd just left. As Charlotte paid the driver with her emergency cash, she tucked Gabriel's card into her purse, unsure whether she would ever use it. That night, after tucking an exhausted but happy Mia into bed, Charlotte sat at their small kitchen table, Gabriel Morgan's business card before her. The rational part of her brain warned against reading too much into tonight's events. Men with power and wealth often made impulsive gestures that meant nothing to them, but could be misinterpreted by those less fortunate. Yet something about Gabriel's attentiveness to Mia, the genuine interest he'd shown in their conversation, suggested there might be more to him than his ruthless business reputation indicated. Charlotte ran her finger over the handwritten note, wondering what would happen if she actually called him. With a sigh, she placed the card in her drawer, beneath a stack of bills waiting to be paid. Whatever Gabriel Morgan's intentions, she had more pressing concerns, like how to make this month's rent after splurging on tonight's birthday dinner. Still, as she prepared for bed, Charlotte couldn't help replaying moments from the evening. The warmth in Gabriel's grey eyes when Mia made him laugh, the gentle way he'd listened to their story, the unexpected connection she'd felt during their conversation. For the first time since Daniel's death, Charlotte had glimpsed the possibility that her world could expand beyond the careful, constrained existence she'd created for herself and Mia. It was a dangerous thought, she knew. Hope was a luxury she couldn't afford. Block 3. Unexpected opportunities. A week passed, and Gabriel Morgan's business card remained untouched in Charlotte's drawer. Life resumed its familiar rhythm, morning shifts at the cafe, evenings of virtual assistant work, while Mia did homework or drew at the kitchen table, and the constant, grinding worry about finances. On Wednesday morning, Charlotte was handling the breakfast rush at Riverbed Cafe when the bell above the door jingled. Without looking up from the espresso machine, she called out the customary greeting. "Welcome to Riverbed, I'll be with you in just a moment." "No rush," replied a deep, familiar voice. "I'm enjoying the view." Charlotte's head snapped up to find Gabriel Morgan standing at her counter, looking impossibly out of place in his tailored suit amid the cafe's rustic simplicity. Several customers glanced curiously at him, clearly recognizing the prominent businessman. "Mr. Morgan," she said, nearly spilling the latte she was preparing. "What are you doing here?" He smiled, the expression warming his normally serious face. "I believe I asked you to call me Gabriel, and I was in the neighborhood for a meeting." The slight hesitation before meeting suggested this wasn't entirely true. Charlotte handed the completed latte to a waiting customer before approaching the counter where Gabriel stood. "How did you find me?" "You mentioned you worked at Riverbed Cafe," he replied simply. "There's only one in Boston." Charlotte didn't know whether to be flattered or concerned that he had remembered this detail and sought her out. "Can I get you something? The blueberry muffins are our specialty." "A coffee and one of those famous muffins sounds perfect," he said, sliding a $20 bill across the counter and waving away change. As Charlotte prepared his order, she felt his eyes on her, not in a predatory way that would have made her uncomfortable, but with a thoughtful intensity that sent warmth creeping up her neck. "I was hoping Mia's artistic talents might have been inherited," Gabriel remarked as she placed his coffee and muffin on the counter. "You create beautiful latte art." Charlotte glanced down at the simple leaf design she'd absent-mindedly created in his coffee foam. "Hardly gallery-worthy," she said with a small laugh. I disagree, he replied. There's art in everyday things if you know how to look. His gaze held hers for a moment longer than necessary. Her manager, Rita, approached with barely concealed curiosity. Charlotte, you can take your break now if you'd like, she offered, eyeing Gabriel with interest. Before Charlotte could refuse, Gabriel spoke. Perfect timing. Perhaps you'll join me, Charlotte. I have a proposition I'd like to discuss. 20 minutes later, they sat at a corner table while Rita handled the counter, throwing occasional glances in their direction. You didn't call, Gabriel said without preamble, breaking off a piece of his muffin. Charlotte shifted uncomfortably. I wasn't sure what to say. Your note was unclear. Fair enough, he conceded. I could have been more specific. The truth is, I was impressed by how you described Mia's artistic interests. Children with creative talents should be encouraged. I agree, but Morgan Developments is sponsoring a children's art initiative, he continued. We're creating a gallery space in our new Harborview building where young artists can display their work. Each quarter, we select 10 children for a special exhibition. Charlotte blinked in surprise. That's wonderful, but I don't understand what this has to do with Mia. I'd like to include her, Gabriel said simply. Based on what you told me about her drawings, she seems like an excellent candidate. You haven't even seen her work, Charlotte pointed out, suspicious of his motivations. And there must be many children with more developed talents. Gabriel leaned forward, his expression earnest. The program isn't about finding the next Picasso. It's about encouraging creativity and confidence in children from all backgrounds. He paused. Particularly those who might not otherwise have such opportunities. There it was. The acknowledgement of their different circumstances that Charlotte had been dreading. I don't want charity, Mr. Morgan. Gabriel, he corrected automatically, and this isn't charity, it's an opportunity, for Mia primarily, but also for my program. Diversity of perspective is vital for any artistic endeavor. Charlotte considered his words, finding no condescension in his tone or expression. And what would this involve exactly? A selection of Mia's artwork would be professionally framed and displayed for 3 months. There's an opening reception where the young artists explain their work to attendees. Each child receives a $500 education stipend and art supplies. $500 would cover next month's rent, with money to spare. Charlotte hated that this was her first thought. And in return, Morgan Developments gets good publicity for supporting underprivileged children. Gabriel didn't flinch at her directness. Corporate social responsibility has multiple beneficiaries. Does that diminish the positive impact? Charlotte had to admit he had a point. I'll have to think about it and talk to Mia. Of course, he replied, reaching into his jacket to produce a brochure. All the details are in here. The deadline for submissions is next Friday. As Charlotte accepted the glossy brochure, their fingers brushed momentarily. She pulled back quickly, unsettled by her reaction to the brief contact. There's one other matter, Gabriel continued, his tone shifting subtly. I understand your apartment building is one of our properties. Charlotte stiffened. Is that why you're really here? Did you investigate me? Gabriel held up his hands in a placating gesture. Not at all. Your address came up in conversation with our property management division when I mentioned meeting a single mother named Charlotte Reed. Pure coincidence. She remained skeptical. And why were you discussing me with your property managers? Because I make it a habit to know who my tenants are, he replied evenly. Particularly when they're working 2 jobs to afford rising rents in gentrifying neighborhoods. Charlotte felt exposed, her private struggles suddenly laid bare. My rent is my concern, Mr. Morgan. I've never been late with a payment. Gabriel, he corrected again, more firmly this time, and I'm aware of your excellent payment history. That's not why I'm bringing this up. Then why? Because we have a resident manager position opening in your building. The current manager is relocating next month. The role comes with a significant rent reduction and a monthly stipend. Given your organizational skills and work ethic, I thought you might be interested. Charlotte stared at him, momentarily speechless. A resident manager position would mean 1 job instead of 2, more time with Mia, and much-needed financial relief. It seemed too perfect, suspiciously so. Why would you offer me this? She asked finally. You barely know me. Gabriel's expression remained unreadable. I know enough. You're responsible, detail-oriented and clearly capable of handling multiple obligations. Those are the qualities needed for the position. And it has nothing to do with pity or something else? The implication hung in the air between them. To her surprise, a hint of color touched Gabriel's cheeks. "I won't deny that I find you intriguing, Charlotte. But this is a legitimate business offer, not a personal one. The position needs filling, and you're qualified." Charlotte didn't know how to respond. The opportunity was exactly what she needed, but accepting felt like acknowledging a connection to this man that she wasn't sure she wanted or could afford to cultivate. "I'll consider it," she said finally. "Could you leave the information?" Gabriel nodded, producing another brochure from his briefcase. As he handed it to her, his expression softened. "For what it's worth, I think you'd excel in the role, but I understand your hesitation." Their conversation was interrupted by Rita, who approached to inform Charlotte that her break was over and customers were waiting. Gabriel stood, gathering his empty coffee cup. "Think it over. Both offers. No pressure, but I do hope you'll say yes." He hesitated, then added, "To at least one of them." After he left, the day passed in a blur as Charlotte's mind raced with possibilities. That evening, she explained both opportunities to Mia, whose excitement about the art exhibition was immediate and contagious. "My drawings? In a real gallery? Like a professional artist?" Mia's eyes widened with wonder as she clutched her favorite sketchbook. "It's a children's exhibition," Charlotte clarified. "But yes, they would be displayed professionally. And I get to talk about my art to real people and get money for school." Charlotte nodded, her daughter's enthusiasm beginning to erode her own reservations. "Yes, but honey, I want you to understand something important. Mr. Morgan might be offering this because he feels sorry for us, not because your art is ready for a gallery." Mia's expression grew serious. "Can I show you something, Mummy?" She ran to her room and returned with a drawing Charlotte hadn't seen before, an incredibly detailed rendering of the restaurant dessert from her birthday night, complete with the melting chocolate sphere and Gabriel Morgan's smiling face across the table. The perspective was childlike, but the emotion and memory had been captured with surprising skill. "I've been practicing extra hard," Mia explained. "I want to get better at drawing people." Charlotte examined the drawing with new eyes, seeing genuine talent in her daughter's work that parental pride might have previously enhanced. Perhaps Gabriel had recognized this potential too, rather than merely offering charity. Later that night, after Mia had gone to bed, Charlotte spread both brochures on the kitchen table alongside her monthly budget. The resident manager position would transform their financial situation dramatically. Combined with the art exhibition stipend, they could finally start building savings instead of merely surviving month to month. But accepting either opportunity meant allowing Gabriel Morgan into their lives in some capacity. The question was whether his interest was purely professional, genuinely charitable, or something more personal, and whether any of those possibilities frightened her more than the others. As she studied the resident manager brochure more carefully, Charlotte noticed something odd. The position was available immediately, but the brochure mentioned that the current manager was relocating next month. This inconsistency nagged at her, raising suspicions about the legitimacy of the offer. The next morning, Charlotte arrived at work early and sought out the cafe's owner, an older woman named Judith who had been endlessly supportive during Charlotte's hardest days after Daniel's death. "Judith, do you know anything about Gabriel Morgan? Personally, I mean." Judith raised an eyebrow. "The real estate magnate? Only what everyone knows. Successful businessman, private about his personal life, reputation for being tough but fair." She paused. "Why do you ask?" Charlotte explained the situation, including both opportunities and her conflicted feelings. "It sounds like he's interested in more than your property management skills," Judith observed with a knowing smile. "But that doesn't mean the offer isn't legitimate. Men like Morgan didn't get where they are by being sloppy with business decisions." "So you think I should accept?" "I think you should verify," Judith advised. "Call the property management company directly. Ask about the position without mentioning Morgan's offer. See if the stories match." That afternoon during her break, Charlotte did exactly that. To her surprise, the company confirmed that the resident manager position was opening, but not until the following month. When she inquired about immediate openings, the representative mentioned a different building across town. The discrepancy confirmed her suspicions. Gabriel Morgan had either fabricated the opportunity entirely or accelerated its timeline specifically for her. Either way, he hadn't been entirely truthful. That evening, Charlotte finally took his business card from the drawer and dialed the number written on the back. "Charlotte," he answered immediately as if he'd been expecting her call. "I was hoping to hear from you." "We need to talk," Charlotte said firmly, pacing the small kitchen while Mia worked on her latest drawing in the living room. In person, of course, Gabriel replied without hesitation. Name the time and place. Tomorrow, noon, the Commons near the duck pond. It's my day off. Charlotte chose a public location deliberately, wanting neutral ground for this confrontation. I'll be there, Gabriel promised. The next day dawned bright and crisp, autumn leaves crunching beneath Charlotte's boots as she approached their meeting spot. Gabriel was already waiting, dressed more casually than she'd seen him before, in dark jeans and a grey cashmere sweater that matched his eyes. Despite his attempt at inconspicuousness, several passers-by glanced at him with recognition. "Thank you for coming," he said, offering a coffee from a nearby vendor. Charlotte accepted the cup, but didn't drink. "I called your property management company yesterday." Gabriel's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. "I see. The resident manager position isn't available until next month, and it's already promised to someone else." She met his gaze directly. "You lied to me." He didn't immediately deny it, which surprised her. Instead, he gestured toward a bench overlooking the pond. "May we sit?" Once seated, Gabriel turned to face her. "I didn't lie about the position existing, but I did accelerate the timeline, and I may have influenced the selection process." "Why?" Charlotte demanded. "What do you want from me, Gabriel?" He looked away briefly, watching a family feeding ducks nearby. When he turned back, his expression held an openness she hadn't seen before. "The truth?" he asked quietly. "That would be refreshing, yes." Gabriel took a deep breath. "When I saw you and Mia in that restaurant, something happened that I can't entirely explain. Your daughter noticed something everyone else missed." "What do you mean?" "While my business associates discussed profit margins and investment opportunities, your daughter saw a man with too much food and no one to share it with." A sad smile touched his lips. Metaphorically accurate in more ways than she could know. Charlotte remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "I have everything society tells us we should want. Wealth, power, success," Gabriel said, gesturing vaguely. "And I dine alone in my penthouse most nights, or with people who want something from me. The genuine joy you and Mia shared over a simple birthday dinner." He shook his head. "It reminded me of what's missing in my life." "So this is about loneliness?" Charlotte asked skeptically. "There must be countless women in your social circle who would be delighted to keep you company." "Women who see Gabriel Morgan, not me," he countered. "You looked at me with suspicion, even disdain. It was refreshing." Despite herself, Charlotte felt her anger wavering. "That doesn't excuse manipulation. Creating fake job opportunities is crossing a line." "You're right," Gabriel acknowledged immediately. "It was wrong and I apologize. I could have simply asked you to dinner like a normal person." "Would I have said yes?" "Probably not," he admitted with a rueful smile. "Which is precisely why you intrigued me." They sat in silence for a moment, the autumn breeze rustling the leaves around them. Charlotte sipped her coffee, organizing her thoughts. "The children's art program," she said finally. "Is that real?" "Absolutely," Gabriel affirmed. "It's been running for 2 years. You can verify that easily enough online. And Mia's talent is genuine. I wasn't exaggerating about that." "But you were using it as a way to maintain contact with me." Gabriel's silence was answer enough. Charlotte shook her head, conflicted. "I don't understand what you want from me. If you're looking for something casual, I'm not interested. Mia and I are a package deal, and I won't expose her to temporary people. That's not what I want," Gabriel said quickly, then hesitated. "To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what I want, which isn't something I often say. I just know I'd like the opportunity to find out." Charlotte studied him, trying to see beyond the powerful businessman to the man underneath. "Why me? I'm a struggling single mother with 2 jobs and endless responsibilities. Your world and mine couldn't be more different." Gabriel's expression softened. "Maybe that's precisely why. You see value in things I've forgotten or perhaps never knew. When you look at me, you don't see dollar signs or business opportunities. You see a person you don't particularly trust," he added with a slight smile, "which is actually quite valuable to someone in my position." Despite her reservations, Charlotte felt herself warming to his honesty. "I still don't think you've told me everything." Gabriel hesitated, then reached into his pocket and produced a worn photograph. "My sister Claire and her daughter Emma," he said, handing it to Charlotte. The photo showed a smiling woman with Gabriel's grey eyes beside a young girl who looked remarkably like Mia. Dark hair, bright expression, artistic sensitivity evident even in her pose. Claire was also a single mother, Gabriel explained quietly. Her husband left when Emma was 2. She refused my financial help out of pride, insisting on making her own way. He paused, pain flickering across his features. They died in a car accident 5 years ago. Emma was 8. Understanding dawned on Charlotte. Mia reminds you of your niece. Gabriel nodded. The resemblance is striking, but it's more than that. Seeing you working so hard to give Mia opportunities, just as Claire did for Emma, he trailed off. I couldn't save them. Perhaps subconsciously I thought I could help you instead. The revelation changed everything. Charlotte handed the photo back gently, seeing Gabriel through new eyes. I'm sorry about your sister and niece, truly. But Gabriel, Mia and I aren't replacements for your lost family. I know that, he said earnestly, and I'm not looking for substitutes. But meeting you both awakened something I thought was gone, a desire for genuine connection, for family. Charlotte felt her defenses weakening but remained cautious. Even if I believed you, I'm not sure a relationship between us could work. Our lives are too different, perhaps, Gabriel acknowledged. But isn't that possibility worth exploring? He reached for her hand, his touch gentle but electric. I'm not asking for promises, just dinner. A real one this time, with no manipulation or ulterior motives. Charlotte found herself at another crossroads, weighing the risk against the possibility. And the job offer? The art program? The art program stands regardless of your decision about me, Gabriel assured her. Mia deserves that opportunity on her own merit. As for the job, he hesitated. I can arrange a legitimate interview for the position when it actually becomes available next month if you're interested. No special treatment, no strings attached. His offer seemed sincere, and Charlotte found herself wanting to believe him. I need time to think about this, all of it. Take all the time you need, Gabriel said. I'm not going anywhere. As they parted ways, Charlotte felt lighter somehow, as if a burden had shifted. Gabriel had shown her a vulnerability that humanized the powerful businessman, revealing the wounded heart beneath the tailored suits and corporate power. Over the next 2 weeks, Charlotte allowed Gabriel into their lives gradually. First, there were conversations over coffee during her breaks. Then he attended Mia's school art show, standing unobtrusively in the back, but beaming with genuine pride when Mia explained her drawings to the other parents. Their first official date was dinner at a modest neighborhood restaurant, Gabriel's deliberate choice, Charlotte suspected, to meet her on her own turf. Unlike their first encounter at Lumiere, here he was the one who stood out, earning curious glances from the regular patrons. You look uncomfortable, Charlotte observed with some satisfaction, watching him adjust to the vinyl booth seating. Not uncomfortable, he corrected. Just recalibrating. It's been a long time since I ate somewhere without a sommelier. Poor you, she teased, surprising herself with the ease that had developed between them. Gabriel laughed, the sound warm and genuine. I deserve that, but I'm enjoying this more than any business dinner I've had in years. As autumn deepened into winter, their relationship evolved cautiously but steadily. Gabriel invited them to events that delighted Mia, a backstage tour of the aquarium, a special exhibition of children's book illustrations, a holiday boat parade viewed from his company's waterfront offices. Through it all, Charlotte maintained her independence, refusing Gabriel's offers to help with her rent or bills. This boundary seemed to earn his respect rather than frustration, confirming her growing belief that his interest wasn't merely charitable or fleeting. In December, Mia's artwork was featured in the Morgan Development's children's exhibition. Standing beside her daughter, as she proudly explained her drawings to attendees, Charlotte caught Gabriel watching them from across the gallery, his expression one of quiet contentment. Later that evening, after Mia had been tucked into bed, exhausted but happy from her triumph, Charlotte and Gabriel stood in her small kitchen, sharing the last of a bottle of wine he'd brought to celebrate. You did a wonderful thing for her, Charlotte said softly. I've never seen her so confident. Gabriel shook his head. I just provided the opportunity. Her talent did the rest. Still, thank you. She hesitated, then added, for everything these past months. For being patient. For respecting my boundaries. Your boundaries are part of who you are, Gabriel replied, stepping closer, and who you are is exactly what I've been looking for without realizing it. The kiss that followed felt inevitable, a natural progression of the connection that had been building between them. Charlotte allowed herself to sink into it, setting aside her practicality for once and embracing the moment. When they finally parted, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling in love with you, Charlotte Reed, and with your extraordinary daughter. I know it hasn't been long, but... Charlotte placed a finger over his lips. It's been long enough for me to know what I feel too, she admitted. But loving us means accepting our reality. I won't change who I am or how I live to fit into your world. I would never ask you to, Gabriel assured her. In fact, it's your world I want to be part of. You've shown me what I've been missing: genuine connection, purpose beyond profit, the joy of simple moments. The following week, Charlotte had her official interview for the resident manager position. True to Gabriel's word, it was conducted with complete professionalism by the property management company, with no sign that the CEO had any personal interest in the candidate. When she received the offer, on her own merit, Charlotte accepted. The reduced rent and stable income allowed her to quit the virtual assistant work, giving her evenings with Mia and occasional dates with Gabriel. As spring approached, Gabriel proposed a solution to the growing challenge of balancing their different worlds. Morgan Developments owned a brownstone building being renovated into family apartments. The ground floor would feature a community cafe and art space where residents and neighbors could gather. I need someone to manage both the property and the cafe, Gabriel explained. Someone with experience in building management, food service, and a passion for creating community. That sounds suspiciously tailored to my resume, Charlotte observed wryly. Gabriel grinned. Perhaps, but it's a legitimate business need, and you're genuinely qualified. Plus, he added more seriously, it would mean creating something together, a place that combines my business expertise with your understanding of what makes a real home. The prospect was enticing, a professional challenge that would utilize all her skills while providing stability for Mia. More importantly, it represented a bridge between their worlds, a space where neither would have to compromise their values. 1 year after their first meeting at Lumiere, Charlotte and Mia moved into the renovated Brownstone's manager's apartment. The building quickly became known for its community-centered approach, with the cafe serving as a neighborhood hub and the art space showcasing work from local artists, including a permanent children's gallery inspired by Mia's success. Gabriel didn't move in immediately, understanding Charlotte's desire to establish independence in her new role. But he was a frequent visitor, gradually bringing fewer work calls and more children's books to read with Mia. On Mia's 8th birthday, they returned to Lumiere, this time as Gabriel's guests, though Charlotte insisted on contributing to the bill. As they shared dessert, Mia looked between the two adults with hopeful eyes. "Are you going to be my new dad?" she asked Gabriel directly, with the innocent bluntness of childhood. Charlotte froze, uncertain how Gabriel would respond to such a weighted question. To her surprise, he met Mia's gaze with complete seriousness. "I would be honored to be your dad, Mia," he said gently, "but that's a very important decision that involves both you and your mum, and it would never mean replacing your real dad, who will always be part of your heart." Mia considered this thoughtfully. "I think Daddy would like you," she decided. "He always said Mum deserved someone who made her smile. You do that a lot." Charlotte felt tears welling as Gabriel reached across the table to take her hand. "Your mom makes me smile too," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "More than I ever thought possible." Later that night, after Mia had fallen asleep surrounded by birthday presents, Gabriel and Charlotte stood on the Brownstone's rooftop garden looking out over the city lights. "She's right, you know," Charlotte said softly. "Daniel would have approved of you, not because of your success or resources, but because you see us, really see us, for who we are." Gabriel pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. "You two changed everything for me. Before you, I was building properties. Now I'm building a life." As they stood together under the stars, Charlotte marveled at the journey that had begun with a little girl staring at a stranger's plate. What had started as an embarrassing moment had transformed into the foundation of an unexpected family, one built not on fairy tale romance or financial rescue, but on mutual respect, shared purpose, and the quiet miracle of finding connection in a disconnected world. Gabriel's phone buzzed in his pocket, undoubtedly some business matter requiring attention. For the first time in his career, he ignored it completely, choosing instead to hold tighter to the woman who had taught him the difference between success and fulfillment. Some plates, Charlotte reflected as she leaned into his embrace, were meant to be shared after all.